Hey guys, this is Ryan over at Magnum Sports. And before we get this video going, I'm just gonna ask that you guys like and subscribe to the channel, as we're putting out new content every week, like what you're about to watch, where we explain why the AK-47 is probably the best fighting gun out there to date. And I know it's gonna be controversial, but we're gonna have a lot of fun. So if you guys would just go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, hit that little bell for the notification so you guys know when we upload a new video, about weekly, and let's have some fun with it. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you guys are watching this. I'm Ryan over at Magnum Sports, and we wanted to do a fun comparison video and kind of, debunk a lot of myths about the AK-47 platform. I have an AKM sitting here with me, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. And we want to talk about why it's probably the best fighting gun in the world, okay? And I know I'm going to get a lot of hates for this, and please blow up the comment section. Let's have some fun with it. But we'll also take a look at why the AR it has its shortcomings, but it has some great attributes as well. Same with the AK series. It has some shortcomings, but that being said, it is a really, really good fighting rifle. So for the time being, I'm gonna go ahead and get the AR kind of out of the way. And we are in a classroom environment. All these guns have been cleared, just so you all are tracking on that. But let's talk about the AK-47. And I think out of due respect for the designer, we have to talk about him first. So Mikhail Kalashnikov was born and raised in Russia, right? And unfortunately, he passed December 23rd of 2013, God rest his soul. Because truly, I love the man just for this design in itself. Mikhail Kalashnikov came from what would be considered a poor family, all right? And he joined the Red Army back in 1938. Shortly after joining the Army, he became a tank commander, and he was actually wounded in battle in October of 1941. So Mikhail had quite a background in actually engineering some things during his time off after being wounded. And he came up with some really interesting ideas for like air conditioning units for inside tanks and things like that. But he kind of wanted to take it to the next level and started kind of, messing around with the idea of creating the AK-47. That was not the original name for it, but regardless, the AK-47 is the AK-47. What I will tell you is a lot of people consider it to be what we'd call a stolen design. So we know that Hugo Schmeisser, one of the Germans, early on came out with a rifle that was called the MP44, and a lot of people will know it just based off the name, the Sturmgewehr 44. There is suspicion that when Hugo Schmeisser was caught by the Russians, that he and Mikhail Kalashnikov were in the same location for an extended period of time. And if we look at the operating system and the gun as a whole of the AK-47, it is very similar to the Sturmgewehr. Even just the way it looks is very similar to a Sturmgewehr or MP44. Maybe we'll do a video later on kind of the history of the Sturmgewehr, because it's a really neat story. But minus it being chambered in 7.62 by 3.9, the AK, the Sturmgewehr at the time was chambered in 7.92 by 3.3 Kurd. So that's something to be mindful of. So Mikhail got to work, right? He was designing a gun. Whether or not it was a stolen design for Hugo Schmeisser or not, whatever, it ended up being probably the best design of a firearm even to date. Mikhail Kalashnikov released his first prototype called the Automata Kalashnikov Obrets. Talk about a mouthful. It was successful to a degree, but it was a stamped receiver, so they were having difficulties with that. The gun I'm holding right here, the AKM, this is a stamped receiver, but it took many years to get this stamped metal to be a successful idea. So the Automata Kalashnikov Obrets being stamped, they were having issues with the trunnion pin blowing out. and all kinds of things going on, swelling of the receiver and things like that. So what Mikkel had to do is go back to the drawing board after his first prototype, and that's where he came up with the AK-47, basically. Very similar design to what you see here in this AKM, except for it has a milled receiver, right? So if you guys are ever trying to like really identify a true AK-47, just know you could always start by looking at the receiver and seeing if it's a milled piece of steel or just this little flat stamped piece of steel. Another good identifier is this little notch here on all AKM or variants of AKs. They're gonna have these little dimples. An AK-47 has a large, like 3" by ½ inch rectangle cut out of the receiver. And that's just a really good indicator. You'll also find like 8 holes in the gas tube. The sights typically don't go out, like on this gun, they go from 100 to 1,000. On true AKs, they only went out to 800 meters. Yeah, and the front sight post was much wider. We know the gun came from Russia. A true AK-47 or AKM is going to be chambered in 7.62 by 3.9, okay? It's going to utilize a 30-round box magazine. So in other words, the magazine is going to feed directly up and in. A magazine for this gun kind of has a rainbow shape to it. I don't have one in here because we're in a classroom setting. But that being said, it is a box magazine, even though it doesn't look like a traditional box, right? It's a box magazine. The locking system is a rotating bolt. So the bolt, as it comes forward into the chamber, it has to lock into place to ensure that gas tight type seal, right? The system of operation is where this gun really excels. So this is a gas gun utilizing a long stroke piston. And I'll show you what that means here in a little bit, but these guns really are reliable just because of the system of operation on this gun. When we talk about actual max effective ranges, like guys, it is 7.62 by 3.9. It's an intermediate battle cartridge, and that's what it was intended for. Those 300-yard-ish engagements. So actually, while the sight is deceiving, leading you up to 800, it would be very difficult without an optic and just this short sight radius to make an 800-yard shot accurately. I'm not saying it can't be done, because I believe it can be. I've actually seen it done, but the max effective range for the average shooter picking up this gun is probably closer to 300 meters, okay? Just to be clear for everybody. And we look at some of the shortcomings. There are shortcomings of this gun too, right? It has no bolt catch, which basically means if this gun runs out of ammo, the bolt is still forward. There's no like visual indicator that your gun is out of ammo. So one of the other shortcomings of the gun is actually the short sight radius. When we look at a number of different manufacturers, whether it be an AR, a FAL, a G3, something like that, the rear sights are clear back here on the back of the receiver. That's not the case with the AK. The rear sight is actually almost dead center in the middle of the firearm, right? So you're not gonna be as accurate because you don't have, and you can be accurate, you just gotta apply the fundamentals differently, but your human error is gonna be magnified a degree because your sights are closer together. Hopefully that makes sense. So overall length of like the first AK-47 and most common configurations come in around 35 inches. I think it's 34.6 inches. And the barrel length on the AK itself is 16.3 inches. It's not an overly heavy gun. It's not a light gun. It's about 8.3 pounds unloaded, okay? One of the other issues that people have seen as a shortcoming is the gas tube being unprotected. Like if you look in our ARs, our gas tubes are protected by our hand guards. These gas tubes are not protected. So if I wanted to impede the cycle of operation, I would just have to bend this gas tube. However, it's not a task that's performed as easily as it sounds. So let's talk about why the AK is probably a better choice for a fighting gun than any of the AR variants that are currently out there. So I'm not hating on the AR world, guys. I really do. I own several ARs. I love ARs. I think they're a beautiful gun. The AR-15 is a great design, and whatever variant it may be, M4, military issue, non-military. When we talk about a gun that was like really founded and pushed hard in America, this is what most people think of. And that comes with its own shortcomings, right? I know America does everything great, but sometimes they can do things just too well, right? First, we're going to talk about the gas system and the differences between the two. So this is a direct impingement system, okay? This system is utilizing all this dirty gas to cycle the bolt rearward, right? And we all know on the bolt, you have a bolt key, and basically a lot of carbon and leftover residues and things like that are going to be built up inside the receiver itself. And that's because the gas goes down the barrel, up the gas block, back down the gas tube, and then it meets your gas key, and all that extra gas that doesn't meet with that gas key is getting blown back into your receiver, right? That's not the case with our AKs. So what I'll do is I'll simply show you, because sometimes we are visual people. With our AK platforms, what we're gonna find is as we remove the bolt, you guys can see kind of how this fits back into the firearm, right? So this would be in its locked position, its forward position. This is our long stroke piston right here. And it literally looks like a piston that you may see in a car, just on a much smaller level. So what happens is the gas is directed the same way down the barrel, just like it is in the AR. Then the gas comes up through the gas block, just like the AR. But then the gas is only making contact with the piston itself, right? So none of the gas is coming back into the receiver at all. None of it's getting built up on the bolt face, the rotating bolt, nothing like that is getting all this dirty expelled gas from the gun. It's all being put right to the front of the piston. And that causes that rearward motion in the firearm. So what's this mean? It means the gun is cleaner, right? The internals, your trigger components, your bolt face, your extractor, your firing pin, your ejectors, all of these are staying fairly free of dirt and debris that would normally be imposed on the gun just by the gas or the cycle of operation. So pretty awesome design, and this has a lot to do with the reliability of the gun. Now let's talk about the next thing. When us as Americans, we build a gun, we tend to take pride in what we do, and I'm not saying that Mikkel didn't, I'm sure he did, but he had limited resources, where here in America, our resources are far more abundant. So what we did in fact find is that when an engineer in America makes something, he has to make it to withstand the test of time, right? So when we make two pieces or two parts fit together, they have to fit together very, very, very well, right? And our machining does it, and everything now to the tightest tolerances imaginable. So what happens when dirt, debris, and things get caught in these spaces? Well, it breaks the cycle of operation in the gun. The gun is being impeded. It's not able to function as it was designed to do when it was perfectly marrying up together. So that's why the AR is so temperamental in like super dusty environments or anything with high moisture and things like that, because as rust builds, as sand gets in, as dirt gets into the operating system of the gun, these parts no longer fit together, and there's a good chance the gun doesn't go bang when it needs to, right? Now, when Mikkel designed this thing, everything he did was kind of like, flying by the seat of his pants. So nothing was engineered precisely. It was just like, this looks about right. Let's see if it shoots. What that has done has created far less tight tolerances. So this thing kind of just slaps together, right? And it leaves a lot of room there for potential dirt, debris, sand, and things like that to get in there, but never impede the cycle of operation. And that's why the AK, again, is just a all-out reliable gun. It can take those dirty, harsh environments, and it will not affect the firearm, typically, as easily, rather, than it would on an AR platform. Right? Now, I'm not, again, against the AR. I believe the AR has a purpose. Let's talk about accuracy. Okay, the AR, without a shadow of a doubt, is a far more accurate firearm than the AK-47 platforms. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's an 8KM, doesn't matter if it's an AK, doesn't matter if it's an AK-74. The accuracy, of course, is going to be better in a gun with such tight tolerances. Right? If the gun's working, it's going to shoot a sub-minute, a 1 minute, whatever the manufacturer says, but ARs are known to be sub-minute guns at this point, right? You can get a 1/4 of an inch group out of some of these firearms. The AK was never designed for that, guys. The AK was designed for like a minute a man, right? Like, it's not even a 1 minute gun, it's like a 3 minute gun. That means a 3-inch group at 100 is satisfactory. And by the time you're out to 300, you're already at a 12-inch group, but still a 12-inch group on a man does good work, right? So when it came to the best fighting gun platform, and this is my argument for the AK, I got a gun that's overly reliable in comparison, right? It runs dirty, it runs hot, it has a really, really robust platform, and it still is capable of defending whatever I'm trying to defend, or even hunting applications. The AK does it better. Collectively, right? It's still satisfactory with accuracy. It's still satisfactory with, you know, how the sights were designed and things like that. It does all those things well enough to be a super reliable fighting gun. The AR will give you the accuracy, but you have to maintain it at all given times. You have to clean it. You have to take care of it. So yeah, hopefully you guys got something out of this. It's super fun to do these videos with you guys. And hopefully you guys are learning something, right? This is a semi-automatic personal defense, go out there, recreational shooting, have fun, and hunting gun that is just really, really well built without being well built at all, if that makes sense. The AR is a great gun, but you have to bear in mind, you have to keep it clean. You have to be on top of it. And they're accurate as all get out. They can be accurate, they can be fast, they can be modified. Both these guns can be modified. So if it came down to it, if I had to pick a gun to be in a fight with, I'm gonna go with the AK. The accuracy is good enough. The reliability is good, is as good as it gets, right? The only thing I got to get over is the operations of the firearm in comparison to the AR. Like always, guys, we hope to be putting out content that you guys appreciate, you guys enjoy and like. With all that fun stuff being said, shoot straight, have fun, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you guys at Magnum Sports.